Hello and welcome to Election 21 Question Time. In this edition, we feature the candidates looking to represent the constituency of Ayre and Michael. Joining me on the panel are, in alphabetical order, Tim Baker, Alfred Cannon, Tim Johnston, Duncan Livingston, and Paul Weatherall. Phil Corkell and Madeleine Westall are also standing for election, but were unfortunately unable to attend this evening. Following the general election on September the 23rd, two of them will be elected to the House of Keys. Before we start the questions, each candidate is given the opportunity to introduce themselves. And first up, we have Tim Baker. Tim.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tim Baker, and I've served as MHK for Ayre and Michael since 2016. I'm standing for re-election as there is so much more to be done to get the Isle of Man to where it can and should be. I can make a significant contribution to achieving this. 5 years ago, I brought substantial leadership and management experience from over 25 years in business and a fresh perspective. Now I am proven and experienced in the political arena with a 5-year track record to judge me against. I've applied myself fully and taken on the most testing and challenging roles in government. I have done what has needed to be done, stepping up to the plate when others may have shied away. Throughout, I have worked hard and collaboratively, serving my constituents and the people of the island with honesty and integrity. I believe I have made a positive impact. Our island needs proven, capable and experienced leadership as we recover from the pandemic and find the right path for everyone's futures. The world around us has changed. We must adapt, and it will not be easy. Our community requires positive, constructive and committed leaders who can be trusted to make the right decisions around our economy, our environment and our society. People who recognise what needs doing, will address the challenges, take on the difficult things and get results. If re-elected, I will continue to serve the island to the absolute best of my ability. I will make things happen on both local and national issues. I'll continue to put the Isle of Man first. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Alfred Cannon.
Good evening. It's been my privilege to have served the island as your Treasury Minister over the last 5 years. Over the last 5 years, I've sought to restore confidence into public finances and also ease some of the cost of living burden that was very apparent in 2016. I've overseen budgets that have raised the personal allowances, focused more support into child benefit, helped people back into employment, and provided targeted benefit increases in critical areas focused around care. We've also sought to bring targeted investment to help grow a better, more diversified economy, and have not been afraid to make the big decisions around purchasing the Isle of Man steam packet, introducing pension freedoms to give you more control over your money as you reach into the later years of your life. And we've also brought about a targeted programme of capital investment, some £450 million set out over a 5-year plan to deliver not only better infrastructure for the island, but also jobs and economic opportunities for people as well. There are many significant issues now facing the island as we move forward. Not only have we dealt with the COVID crisis, investing over £130 million of direct financial support in a targeted programme designed to support jobs and families across this island, but now we must face up to post-COVID recovery. We must also look very carefully at healthcare transition, climate change, education, and of course the economy and jobs and the diversification need as we move into the future. I very much hope to convince you over the next few weeks that I have both the experience and acumen and knowledge to help deliver the programme for government that will be needed to tackle these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Johnston.
Good evening, everybody. Since early June, I have visited the majority of homes within Ayre and Michael, not simply to put a leaflet through the letterbox, but to listen to you, the constituent, to really understand the local and wider issues that are of concern. I have really appreciated the welcome and feedback I have received, and I will continue to speak to as many people as I can. I repeat my clear commitment that if I am elected on September 23rd, I will not take on a ministerial position in the new administration. If asked, I may well become a departmental member to understand better the workings of government. But ultimately, my main priority is to serve you, the people of Ayre and Michael, and in doing so, to build trust and to ensure you have an approachable, accountable member of the House of Keys working on your behalf. I propose to hold regular surgeries throughout the constituency, including meetings in the summer recess, to get your feedback and hear your concerns. Being independent, I cannot and will not make policy promises to you that are unrealistic or unachievable, but I can promise to provide a voice for Keys. Rural constituencies like Ayre and Michael are increasingly ignored by our Douglas-centric politics, and problems often unique to rural communities are being overlooked. Connectivity or lack of it is a real issue, whether it's mobile broadband quality, public transport, or the condition of the roads. Time and time again, this has come up on the doorstep. I will look to work in any way I can to provide the best outcomes for constituents' concerns on these and wider issues, including housing, health, education, climate change and the economy. Only by having an MHK who works with the community and local authorities and who is willing to question and lobby on your behalf can many of these issues be faced. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Duncan Livingstone.
Good evening. For those people who don't know me, my name is Duncan Livingstone, born and raised in Kirkmichael. I worked as a police officer for 30 years, 6 of which was covering Ramsey in the North, and 20 years as a traffic officer. For the last 10 years, I've worked as a self-employed driving instructor. I got involved with politics locally in Kirkmichael because of the road scheme that was planned for there. And after that, I became a commissioner in Kirkmichael. From that, I felt that I could offer more to the island and to the North and West community, including Ayre and Michael, obviously. My main focus, if I was fortunate enough to be elected, is I want to see improvements to the repairs to roads. The roads need to be fit for purpose. I would like to see clarity on what is going to happen with the North and West plan, and also affordable housing and limiting the greenfield developments which seem to be blighting the island. I think there's a need for government reform, improved transparency. There seems to be a disconnect between the voters and government. And I would support a reduction in members of Tynwald. I think 24 is too many members for Tynwald. I've heard that Turkey's voting for Christmas, but I would be in support of that if required. The economy is obviously going to be important. I'm not an expert on that, but will take advice from people who are and do whatever's necessary. Crime and justice, I would like to see the legalisation of cannabis, and I would like to see the decriminalising of possession of other drugs. I think it should be dealt with as a welfare issue rather than as a criminal issue.
Sorry, your 2 minutes are up. Sorry.
Sorry, I had 6 seconds left. Good.
Sorry.
Thank you. I'll stop though.
Paul Weatherall.
Hi, I'm Paul Weatherall. I'm Liberal Vanning candidate. My manifesto covers a range of topics covering government policy and services, but the 3 main priorities that I see for government, 2 over the next 12 months or so, and the 3rd, climate change, we need to get to grips with. It's been left to drag on a bit by the present administration, the leaving administration. The first 2 priorities, though, are helping people still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, especially those self-employed in affected sectors of the economy. We'll need to keep supporting some of them over the next 6 to 12 months until we know how things are going to go next summer. Hopefully the TT coming up in end of May, beginning of June next year will be a success, and the summer season after it. But until we get to that stage, there is a need to keep vigilant and keep supporting people still trying to recover. Hospital waiting lists we need to bring down, both for diagnosis and obviously treatment. And climate change, we need to consider a new interconnector with the UK, and we need to consider installing wind turbines and solar farms on the island. If elected, I will be looking to have a more open, fair and transparent government over the next 5 years. I'd like to see our use of the food bank come down substantially and fewer people technically homeless. I hope that you will support me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. First question relates to your particular constituency. In the UK, land assets such as disused airfields are often the site for the development of new technology parks, business parks, new housing. What future would you like to see for Derby Airfield? Duncan Livingston.
It's anything which is environmentally friendly has got to be good. However, I don't know what the exact situation is with contracts which are held with the people who are in situ at Derby at the moment. So I can't really respond without knowing what the contracts are which already exist. Obviously, in the future, it would be nice to develop it so that it was environmentally friendly. I think innovative things involving trying to encourage the likes of Elon Musk, trying to get Tesla, somebody like that over here, would be fabulous for the island. It would bring jobs in. But whether that's a pipe dream, obviously, I don't know.
So something like a centre for the manufacture of environmentally friendly products?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you. Alfred Cannon?
Over the last few years, Derby Business Park has started to develop. There has been investment that has gone into the Derby Business Park. The DOI have invested in new infrastructure in that area, and we've continued to look to seek and welcome businesses. And I see a bright future, not only just for the business park, but also for the land around the business park as well. There's real opportunities in that particular space and in that area, not only just to build out the business opportunities within Derby, and that means enhancing the infrastructure there, but also we can do more in terms of welcoming housing and a better village infrastructure there. So it does have the infrastructure. It is a case really of continuing to ensure that the business park itself has the buildings and infrastructure that is needed to get new businesses there. And I think the evidence over the last 5 years is that we have done that to a degree. There is room for much more focused plan with Derby. I would actually like to see the management of the Derby area business park particularly, if possible, outsourced to a private enterprise to look after, and they would have to work in conjunction with government. But there has been opportunity, there has been progress, and I think I would be looking to continue with that sort of progress, but in particular the infrastructure, and there is an absolute critical need for the water supply in Derby to be strengthened. I've been working on that as part of the sort of program over the last year or so, and one needs to see that happen really alongside the growth of the park itself.
Okay, thanks very much. Tim Baker, you want to jump in?
If I could just add to that. I mean, what Alf's articulated is absolutely correct, and Derby is in a unique position on the Isle of Man. It's the natural home for certain types of larger scale businesses that particularly need more space, and Derby is a great opportunity. There's a lot of available space there. There's infrastructure investment going in, there's community investment going in, and there's been some recent developments speculatively by the Department of Infrastructure to create new units. Now, the answer to where Derby's economic future comes is really linked to the economic strategy of the island as a whole. And it's clear to me that the sectors that have made us successful to date, in particular the finance sector and the e-gaming sector, whilst they've still got a good future, they are not going to give us the growth and the future aspirations that we need as an island. So I very much support the work that's going on at the moment to review the island's economic strategy. KPMG are engaged in that, and I think Derby's got a key part to play in whatever sectors emerge from that process as being the right ones for the island to focus on.
Thank you. Paul Weatherall, what's your view on that?
Both Derby and Andreas airfields are obvious places for industrial and business development, and also both obvious places for installation of solar power renewable technology. I would support both of those. I think there needs to be environmental impact assessments to make sure that whatever is developed there is not affecting the natural environment in the area that may or may not need protecting. But it's important to bring jobs into the area, and there's also a need for additional housing that would support any business development.
Thank you. Tim Johnston?
Yeah, well, obviously housing, as you mentioned, I think Derby is one of these places where there's been every election it's talked about, and I think people get very frustrated in Derby because actually not a great deal seems to happen, and I think there are some serious things that do need looking at. It's been alluded to already, water is a big issue. Before any further development can take place in Derby, there needs to be real investment in infrastructure. Now it's talked about, but nothing happens. You talk to people in, say, on the threshold in Derby who've been waiting for 2-3 years for upgrades in the properties. They've still got asbestos roofs, garages attached to the homes. They're waiting. They feel very forgotten about and isolated. So I think we need to get things in the right order. Yes, we need to encourage investment in local industry at the airfield, but we also need to start treating Derby and the people in Derby with a bit more respect and as part of that whole package. And certainly in the farming industry, we're hoping very much to see in the future relocation of milling facilities to Derby, and then we're hoping that will then maybe develop a wider food hub for the island. So there are opportunities there, but we've got to get some of these basics right first.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of you touched on housing. At the moment, as you know, there's no restrictions for new residents or investors in purchasing property in the Isle of Man. Does the situation need to change given the struggles that many in the population are experiencing in getting on that housing ladder? Tim Baker?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a big challenge around housing on the Isle of Man, and it's been magnified by the recent pandemic. The multiples between our wage levels, which are essentially equivalent to the northwest of England, and our house price levels, which are more akin to the southeast of England, are completely out of balance, and it's creating real challenges for particularly for young families to get on the housing ladder. And if we don't address that, we're going to really struggle to get the workforce that we need on this island. We need to create opportunities for young Manx people to stay on the island, and we also need to be attractive to people to come from other jurisdictions to service our needs in healthcare and in education and in the private sector as well. So there's a big piece of work to be done around our whole housing strategy. And interestingly, housing currently doesn't have a minister with responsibility across the whole of housing, which is something that I would be looking to see addressed in the next administration, because historically the focus has been very much on social housing, which is of course a very important part of the mix, but is only one part of the jigsaw.
Thank you. Paul Weatherall?
The outgoing administration keeps talking about having a housing strategy. We need to get to grips with that and get a housing strategy. Issues like who could or shouldn't be allowed to buy houses on the island could be addressed through that. Until we have a clearer idea of what the position is in terms of housing need and developers' needs, then I think we can't make a decision here and now on whether people should be banned from investing in property on the island if they don't live here. But I think it's one of the areas that obviously needs looking at. What we need to address is the fact that there are a lot of people on the island, mainly 20 to 30-year-olds, who are finding it really difficult to get their first step on the property ladder or even find a place to rent at a reasonable, affordable price. That's what needs addressing, and government needs to get to grips with providing more housing of affordable price, getting its social housing in order, having some housing provided by local authorities, some by the DOI, with no coordination across the island. It's a disaster, it's a mess.
Thank you. Tim Johnston?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to... It's interesting to listen to the election debate. There's no doubt, I think, whoever goes into the Keys, this housing is such a big issue that's coming up on the doorstep, and it's something, it's a major issue for us for a future. We're talking about trying to plan a future economy, and if we haven't got young people on the island, we can't attract people back to the island, then we've got a real problem. So it is a very crucial issue. No straight answer to it, I accept that. But when you look at the way house prices have gone over the last 12 months, Clearly, the schemes that are available, the first-time buyer schemes, are completely out of sync now with where things are as far as prices. You take a freshly qualified police constable or firefighter on their sort of salary, they don't now qualify for that scheme, but at the same time not earning anywhere near enough to be able to get onto the housing ladder. So there's a real issue. I think we need to use the census now as well, the new census, to understand exactly what we do need and where we need it. I think this, as long as we give sort of carte blanche to the large developers, they will continue to roll over greenfield sites and build what they want for profit margin rather than necessarily building what we actually need. And I think we do need to look more scientifically within our communities of what we need, where we need it, maybe look at using more greenfield and sites, redevelopment sites, and really understand what we need and make sure we're providing that for future generations.
Thank you. Duncan Livingston?
Yeah, I would support some form of Residency Act. Obviously, it would need a bit of investigation as to the best way to implement that. One thought that I had as a possible solution was to introduce some sort of stipulation that new build houses have a rent cap on them to try and discourage people just buying them as rental properties. So people who already own properties, it wouldn't influence them. They would still be able to rent the properties out. But for new builds, you wouldn't be able to get a developer coming in buying 50 houses just so that they can rent them out. And that might just dampen the market a little bit to allow newcomers to buy in. We need young people to come over here. We need them to be able to afford houses. It is a real big issue. That tied in with the Northwest Plan, I think, is one of the biggest issues that people are talking about on the doorstep.
Okay, thanks very much. Alf Cannon?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it is an issue. I mean, it has become a mini crisis, and I think COVID has really driven a lot of the current issues that are being faced, and people can't get onto the property ladder, and the people are struggling to find the deposits necessary. So we do need absolutely to take immediate action in terms of government, the next government setting out to address this. But bear in mind, go back 5 years, the last census showed that we had a decreasing population. People were worried about the future of the island. And in fact, there's only a couple of years ago that there were vociferous arguments about land allocation for the Eastern Area Plan based on the fact that a lot of people were arguing that the population statistics weren't actually accurate. So, you do have to have a level of calmness as well when you are dealing with these situations as well, but it's almost a sort of controlled urgency. Certainly we need to look at what the schemes are available for first-time buyers. I mean, that's imperative, and we can look at both the current existing schemes, whether they can be extended out. Also, we need to urgently explore whether new initiatives around rent to buy and other similar initiatives can be brought in. We need to urgently look at the regeneration brownfield site issue and see what can be done in terms of affordable housing there. We've just started up the Manx Development Corporation, which we've formed out of the Economic Recovery Group. That already has progressed to getting targeted sites in mind. And one of the first schemes that is being looked at, and I hope that will be brought to the fore before Christmas, will be affordable housing site. And we also then need, in terms of the numbers that we've got the North and West Area Plan coming up, we do need to take a considerate approach. Again, the focus really should be about regenerating our towns where possible, controlled, proportional, relevant allocation around our villages. And that type of focus, but we do need to address this very quickly as part of the first plans that are drawn up by the new government.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to move on to a new topic. One way of improving the waiting lists is to successfully fill the many job vacancies that exist in healthcare at the moment. What do you think government can do further to attract those professionals to the island? Tim Johnston.
Well, one of the issues we've just been talking about actually is homes and affordability and the cost of living on the island. That's a big challenge, I think, for any professionals, not just in the health profession. I think education as well, we're seeing that and across the board. So I think we need to understand that is one of the issues. Certainly listening to Manx Carelix and some of the issues they're talking about, I think for healthcare professionals, it's also making sure that they see a career path on the island as well. At the moment, I think we tend to be more stopgap filling issues rather than actually looking long term. So I certainly hope from the changes that Manx Care are going to bring that we're going to have a better vision, a better strategy for healthcare, and actually then start really thinking about, well, who do we need to fill these posts and where we're going to get them. And that's a big challenge in itself. I know recently they've announced funding for more mental health professionals, but so the funding's there, that's great, but actually then trying to find them in other jurisdictions is a real challenge. So yeah, I think that's certainly one of the areas I'm concerned about is cost of living and making sure they've got career progression.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't
Sorry.
think, this isn't just an Isle of Man issue. Across the UK, United Kingdom, there are thousands of vacancies for healthcare professionals that are not being filled. Putting together Manx Care has been an initiative that we've brought forward as part of the new government to try and address some of the long-standing issues that have been prevalent on the island, to bring and to aim for class-leading healthcare. And of course, as Tim has just rightly pointed out, we've put millions of pounds into health during the course of this administration. We've put millions of pounds around the healthcare transformation, and part of the attraction to the island will be working for a class-leading healthcare system. Now, we have been recruiting more specialists over the last 6 months or so to the island. That is part of the plan. There's a lot more analysis to do, but we've got to help support and nurture Manx Care as it finds its feet on a very, very difficult playing field post-COVID. Long waiting lists. We put another £1.5 million in to deal with some of those, the length of some of those waiting lists, to bring more appointments forward, to bring operations forward. That also will form part of an island plan that I hope the next administration will be putting together in terms of not only continuing to support the healthcare transition, but also we will have to bring forward targeted plans to reduce the waiting lists, get people seen, and to give the platform for Manx Care to sort of grow and develop into the future as we bring on board more specialisms and more treatments for residents on the island. But part of that, of course, in bringing people across, that culture, that knowledge that they're going to be working for a class-leading healthcare system needs to also be there. Because no matter what you say, when people come across, if they're not enjoying the working environment, it doesn't matter how well you're paying them or what the environment around them is like. If they're not enjoying their work, then they're not going to stay. So that's absolutely vital. We continue to work to improve our health service as a service, and particularly around the hospital delivery.
Okay, thanks. Paul Weatherall?
Yeah, there's no doubt that throughout the UK, British Isles are facing a healthcare professional shortage. And there are two basic ways in which we can help things on the island. One is perhaps through technology, and we can have more consultations remotely, so you don't have to bring healthcare professionals actually here. People can get their consultations by Zoom or whatever. Not everyone's happy with that, obviously, and not everyone can have the technology or the confidence to do it. But if we really want to bring health professionals to the island, we've got to pay them more and provide relocation packages. There's no doubt that health and social care on the island needs more money.
Do we not pay them more already, though?
Sorry?
Do we not pay them more than their UK equivalents already?
We do already, but if we want to attract more people here to fill vacancies, the only way of doing that is through payment. That's the law of economics. So the health, as I was saying, the health and social care bill is bound to increase. It's how we pay for it. That's a crucial decision that the next administration is going to have to take. Health and social care over the last 4 or 5 years has been running at a deficit every year and has had to have more money. Setting up Manx Care, they gave them an extra £6 or so million to help them on their way. They've just given another £1.5 million to help with reducing waiting lists. This is going to have to continue. More money is required to get the health and social care service that we need and deserve.
Okay, thank you. Duncan Livingston?
Yes, Alf and Tim may be able to help me with this because I'm not entirely sure, but I've heard that there's an issue because there's a pension disparity, that people who come here, their pension can't be transferred back across. I don't know, can Alf or Tim give any clarity on that? It's a thing that I've heard from people who I've spoken to in the health service, that it's a concern of theirs that the pension is not transferable. So if they come here, they're sort of stuck. So I could be completely wrong on that. which is why I'm asking if
I don't have that level of knowledge, I'm afraid. Tim Baker, do you have any?
Well, I think the key thing is what we mustn't lose sight of is the fact that we've started this transformation process. So Jonathan Michaels was brought in, very eminent UK experience, completely reviewed everything, and he's set a path, and it's a multi-year path. Now we're 6 months into that in terms of Manx Care now being in existence and taking over the operation of and delivery of our healthcare. It's a multi-year journey. It's got a very experienced management team. We need to let them get on with the job. We need to back them, and we need to they need to understand what their proposition is to their market in terms of resources and recruitment. And we need to let them have the freedom, which this new arm's length model gives them, to actually address the market in the right way. And if it's a pensions issue, if it's a remuneration issue, if it's an organisational culture issue, they need to get on and actually address those issues in the same way as any other leadership team in any organisation on the island.
But you can't just, you can't just take Paul's point, just start throwing money at wages and expect everything to suddenly get better. Could you imagine the knock-on effect across government? I mean, that type of we just throw money at people's wages and expect them to come and deliver it would have significant ramifications across public sector budgets. We've got to get targeted delivery and value for money for the taxpayer, and you can't just throw money at everything and expect to get an outcome. We've got to as a government, and I think everybody would recognise this at the moment. We've got to move forward. We've got to seek value for money. And when we're putting millions of pounds into health, as we are doing at the moment, and there are planned increases for health along with, to match what Sir Jonathan Michael has outlined, but we've also got to get a return from that in terms of delivery, and we're going to get standards. We need standards, and we need transparency, and we need these to be scrutinised carefully by the Tynwald and the public on an annual basis. So there are definitely areas for improvement. There is a clear need for investment in health, but you can't just adopt the attitude that we're just going to throw money at the situation and throw money at wages and expect people to come, because we've also got to get outcomes and proper targets in place so that the taxpayer can see that we're getting value for money from our health service. And many people that we are meeting on the doorsteps at the moment are in long-term pain, are significantly disillusioned by the waiting lists that they're facing, and don't believe that they're getting the value for money. And so COVID does carry a lot of responsibility around that. But yes, we've got a lot to do, but the investment's got to be targeted, it's got to be appropriate, and it has got to deliver the proper outcomes for people. And that's what the plan we're following alongside Sir Jonathan Michael. It's difficult at the moment because of COVID, but we've got to stick with it, and we'll continue to invest appropriately into health to get the outcomes that we need.
Okay, thank you.
No
Do you want to respond, Paul?
about throwing money or not getting value for money. We're talking about, Tim was talking about having Manx Care given the freedom to get on and produce the targets that they need, but they also need resources. There's no getting away from that either.
Okay, thank you. I believe we have a couple of questions from the audience.
Many of our customer-facing businesses are facing huge economic challenges following government lockdowns. The recent PwC report found that many of these businesses are now carrying unprecedented levels of debt. Should we be doing more financially to help these businesses survive? Or with the inevitable shifts in living and working habits, should we be allowing some to fail?
Okay, Paul, Weatherall, do you want to pick that up?
Well, I touched on that in my opening remarks, and yes, I believe that businesses will need continuing support. We've got to make sure that our visitor hospitality and tourist sector especially are in a strong position to give people, when they come over next summer, the best possible visitor experience we can give them to encourage people coming back again in future years. So, yeah, there may be some businesses that were struggling to survive before COVID that might be difficult to justify supporting. But I think the core of our hospitality and tourist sector in particular need careful nurturing and further financial support over the next 6 to 12 months.
Thank you. Tim Johnston?
I think looking at the future economy, looking at the challenges ahead, hopefully post-COVID, moving forward, we're going to need the tourist industry as a key tool in helping us get back on our feet, pick ourselves up, dust ourselves down, and get going again, because we've been such a challenging period. So we must do what we can, but at the same time, there isn't an endless amount of money available, and I think it's fair to say that lots of businesses across all sectors have been stress test quite significantly over the last 18 months. Some have survived, some have adapted and actually thrived, and some have struggled. And I think, some of those businesses maybe pre-COVID were having issues, and to be, I'm afraid in the real world, it's not necessarily government's responsibility to keep businesses open that are struggling. So, I think we need to, in the new administration, I think what it really needs to do, and I think it's really key, is to set out a real clear strategy for the economy, for the island, a real roadmap for the future, like any good business would, and because that helps to set a vision for business as well, and it helps to build confidence, and that's what business really needs more than anything. It needs confidence so that businesses can borrow and they can invest. So that's a real key challenge of the next administration, to ensure they do that, and hopefully then give incentives for businesses to reinvest and move forward. But ultimately, government can't be the constant backstop for support.
Okay, thank you. Duncan?
Yeah, I don't disagree with either of what Paul has said. In an ideal world, we would support businesses as much as we can, but it's not a bottomless pit. It's not government's job. So there will be some support which will need to be offered, but it will need so much investigation and so much consultation needed to see which businesses are viable and which businesses really need the help because of COVID, and which businesses were suffering anyway. So it's not an easy question. I would need advice from people who are more expert in the field than I am.
Okay, thank you. Tim Baker, you wanted to...
Yeah, I think there's a number of strands to this. Of course, the Department for Enterprise, or DED in its previous incarnation, plays a very valuable role in supporting businesses, and there's a very wide range of packages to help businesses grow and develop and invest. We've obviously gone through an unprecedented period in terms of COVID, and that's had a huge impact. And I think it's credit of this administration that actually we've had so few casualties in terms of the business sector. But that's been propped up by a huge amount of government funding. That can't carry on at that rate. So we need to migrate away from that. Government needs to work collaboratively with the business community to create the right environment for businesses, but ultimately businesses need to adapt their operations and their businesses, as many have successfully done over this last period. The other point I would highlight is, of course, the whole of the business sector in other jurisdictions is going through similar challenges, and a lot of this is not just an Isle of Man issue. It's not just a COVID issue. We've seen a long period of revolution on the high street. The Isle of Man's not immune from that, and we have to take a very considered approach. But the way to do it is for government to create an environment working collaboratively with the various industry bodies.
Thank you. Alfred Cannon?
Well, as your questioner will recognise, over the last 18 months or so, we've put £130 million of direct support into jobs, businesses, and the local community on this island to keep people's businesses alive, to protect jobs, to keep some parity of family incomes through this crisis. And the thing about this crisis is that it's had a constant series of twists and turns. And so we don't really know yet at this stage how, for example, COVID is going to impact on the island and potentially on the economy over the course of the winter. We set up the Economic Recovery Group last year to work closely with businesses to monitor the situation, to make judgment calls about when to put support into the local economy. We accept that the domestic economy in particular has had a pretty rough ride as a result of COVID, as a result of the government policies around borders. But some of that is slowly starting to recover, and we have continued to put support in. In fact, during July and August, alongside with the Council of Ministers, we've approved a series of support packages again for tourist accommodation and for some of our retail and domestic-facing businesses. I think the important thing is that we continue to monitor that. I very much hope that the Economic Recovery Group will continue in its existence in some form, certainly over the next 9 months or so, through till the spring of next year. So that we can actually get a better understanding of what's happening in our economy. And you do need to make a judgment calls alongside that, because collapse of our small retail domestic businesses, really the sort of lifeblood of our domestic economy, would not be in the greater economic interest of the Isle of Man, wouldn't be in the interest of jobs and government income in the longer term. So we do need to take a proportional and warranted approach. But keeping the Economic Recovery Group together will be vital, as will our general management at this particular time of the COVID situation.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions from the audience? No? Okay, just staying on the theme of the economy, do we need to reduce our reliance in future on financial services and e-gaming, given the pressures that those sectors face from a variety of areas? Tim Baker.
Yeah, I mean, clearly those have been the big bedrocks of our economy for a number of years, and any organisation with dependence on a small number of key sectors is clearly exposed. But actually, we've got quite a diversified economy compared to many of our competitors. But as I touched on earlier, I think the international climate is clearly changing. Joe Biden's influence in terms of his public statements around global tax rates, for instance, added to the previous issues around transparency and base erosion, profit shifting, coming out of the international environment, has really brought some challenges. Now, the island has got a tradition and a track record of adapting, and I'm sure our finance sector and our e-gaming sector will adapt, but we can't rely on them to deliver the future prospects that we want. So we have to develop other sectors of the economy, and the work's already been started in terms of the KPMG review, and that is clearly a key piece going forward.
Do you have a gut feeling in terms of which new sectors we should try and attract? Well,
I mean, that's the piece of work that KPMG are looking at. It's got to be sectors where the Isle of Man has got an advantage and can play to our strengths. And there are a number of sectors that it could be. People talk about becoming a leader in terms of some of the climate adaptation, thought leadership. There's obviously opportunities around the visitor economy, because we've got a great proposition which I think will come back into favour, certainly from the UK, looking for holiday destinations that are different but are accessible and safe. And I think there's a number of technology-based opportunities as well, but that needs a very considered evaluation, and needs to play out over the coming months.
Thank you. Duncan Livingston, do you have a view on what sectors we should be trying to attract?
Not what sectors, but any sectors that we can, which would help the island economy to grow, have got to be beneficial, especially if it's bringing new people in, new residents, especially young people, because the island needs an injection of young people. Anything we could do as well to encourage our graduates who've left the island to come back has got to be a good thing as well.
Thank you. Paul Weatherall, online gaming often attracts negative headlines for the island.
Well, it's always dangerous to have your eggs in just one or two baskets. So I think diversifying the economy is a must. It's a natural thing that we should be doing. I think measures that we're going to have to take to bring about what we need for climate change are a good way of diversifying the economy. We need to develop new skills. We need to get the university college on the island to provide new courses to fill skills gaps. And as Duncan says, to attract some of our graduates to come back, but also to entice many of our younger people to stay on the island and study on the island and then work on the island rather than going across. Not everyone wants to do this, and we shouldn't stand in the way of young people who are wanting to spread their wings and make their way in the world. But doing what we can to encourage as many people as possible to develop their skills and develop businesses on the island is a must.
Thank you. Alf Cannon, we've talked about diversification. We already promote over 20 sectors. Is that too many, or do we need to attract even more to the island?
I think the answer to that question, it really lies with this new economic strategy that was commissioned by the Economic Recovery Group and Council of Ministers last year, and is now being run out in conjunction with a local partner. An extensive consultation is taking place across the business community, but the platform that will be delivered will not only be an analysis of current and existing business, but will also look to target and identify the areas for growth into the future. That platform exists. I think actually, interestingly enough, and I was looking back at the July Tynwald and some of the answers to the questions delivered there. Since 2016, there are an estimated 1,250 more economically active people on the island, and there are some 600 and so more businesses now registered for ITIP. So I think people would be actually quite surprised at the diversification that already exists on the island. The key factor is continuing to invest into the right areas. In fact, over the last 5 years, we have supported a diverse range of business, everything from media to aircraft engineering, to both establish themselves and to sort of diversify their own businesses. So you can actually see diversification from within the existing sort of business frameworks, and it's something that's obviously critically vital to the island as we move forward. But alongside that, it's okay attracting the business, but also then come on the other critical issues around infrastructure, around health delivery, around education. So this is not just single issue politics. What we're dealing with at the moment moving forward in sort of the period 2021 to 2026 is multi-dimensional. And I think that you're going to need people who understand a vaster range of issues, but also you're going to need logical thinking, clear thinking, some simplicity brought to it to start to put these pieces together in order to have a successful island plan that will give confidence both from our economy, from businesses, but also from the people who live and work and undertake a diverse series of roles across our island.
Thanks so much. I just want to get Tim's view on it. Thanks.
Yeah, classic issue was with a small jurisdiction, challenges of diversifying the economy. I think e-game is a very important part. The main thing is to have good regulation. As long as there's good regulation, I think it's something you can stand behind confidently, and that's important. Also looking at developing, I think, high-tech industry. We've got, I think, over 150 businesses on the island, what I call the high-tech STEM industries, over 2,000 people employed in those sort of industries. So, again, always looking at trying to develop those areas. And I think, again, making sure government is creating that level, proper playing field for business to thrive. So always looking at ways to say, obviously you always need regulation, but where can we alter to make sure regulation isn't hampering business? And we were told post-Brexit that there will be a bonfire of red tape. I hadn't seen that happen yet. What opportunities are there for a small jurisdiction to look at that, to make sure that we're doing all we can to have that sort of level playing field so that the business can thrive, and obviously what government can then do to help that as well.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Paul. Yeah.
Our agriculture and fisheries sectors need to be helped to diversify as well. And we've got the possibility of cannabis farms on the island. Duncan mentioned legalisation of recreational cannabis, but we've already legalised medicinal cannabis, and there are people developing that sector more or less as we speak. So that's an area, and helping farmers with ecotourism ideas, the agri-environment scheme that's been brought in, I think it could be enhanced from where it is, but it's a good start. And I think that getting farmers to perhaps realise that livestock and dairy waning a little bit and getting people to think about how they use their land for other products, other crops.
Okay, thank you. I just want to move on to an issue which is sort of very top of mind at the moment. That's climate change. Is government being ambitious enough in its current climate change action plan? Paul Weatherall.
Well, I think we're not sure what government over the last 2 years has really thought about the current report and the action plan that he had. There were two strands to it, and one was more ambitious than the other, and government appears to have hedged their bets on whether to go for one or the other or neither. They are moving forward now, but it's at the fag end of the administration, and it's the next administration that's going to have to make the decisions. I mentioned again in my opening remarks that we need to think about some serious decisions straight away, like having another interconnector with the UK. Our grid isn't capable of taking a great deal of renewable energy, but we need to think about how Pulrose gas-fired power station is going to be replaced in 10 or 15 years' time. And that's a decision we need to take quickly.
Thank you. Tim, sure you'll have something to say?
I mean, that work's already underway. There's a huge amount of work going on, driven by the Climate Change Transformation Board, which both Alf and I sit on. And as Chairman of Manx Utilities, I can tell you that these issues are very much front of mind. They are very expensive and they're multidimensional. So, we've got to determine how we're going to generate our future power needs, but we've also got to do it in a way which retains the outstanding resilience that we've got in terms of power supplies on the island, which actually is one of the key attractors for the gaming sector is our high quality stable power supply, and we've got to do it without creating social issues in terms of affordability. So the energy trilemma, which covers all of those, climate, security and economics, is something that has to be got right. And it's very easy for people to say, well, it should all be done a lot quicker and almost play games with 2050, no, it should be 2035, well, why not 2030? This is integral to the island's economic and social future. It's got to be got right. There is a real commitment to addressing this, but it has to be done in a controlled and organised and thought through manner. Otherwise, we will end up jeopardising the island's future.
Thank you. Duncan Livingston.
It's vitally important that we move on this, and the government has certainly talked a lot about it. My concern is that their actions aren't necessarily leading by example. I quote as an example the new test centre which has just been built or is in the process of being built. There are no ground source heat pumps in that. There are no plans, as far as I'm aware, for any solar panels on the roof. That is going to be drawing power from the grid exactly the same as the old one was. They could have set an example and put lots of innovative technology in there, and they just haven't done that. And this is where I think there's a need for a greater tied in, joined up thinking with planning and what government are doing and how they can sell ideas to the public, leading by example.
Thank you. Tim Johnston?
Yeah, there's no prizes for coming first actually with this. I mean, to me, 2050 is a sensible aim. I don't think there are plans in place, and there's a climate bill. There's an energy discussion at the moment, so that is happening. As a farming industry, we're listening to that. We're very interested in that because we're seeing opportunities for farming involved in green energy production, something that the Isle of Man is 15, 20 years behind the curve on this. And because of the situation with the loans carry on with the MUA, we haven't had that funding there available. So we're playing catch up. But so there's no prizes for coming first. There's a huge cost involved, huge opportunities as well for new business. But we've got to do it at the right pace for our economy, for the Isle of Man. And we've got to make sure that we're taking everybody with us on that journey. There's a real danger. What I call what we have is a just transition, making sure that everybody within the economy is taking along with this whole process, because it is going to be a huge challenge. Looking at the different energy scenarios, I believe the cheapest one we're looking at £1 billion. That's a huge cost for the economy. So these things have to be thought about very carefully and planned how we do it. And yes, government needs to lead by example. Having more self-sufficiency is very important. I think government could do a lot more, for example, by providing more local food in the hospital and the schools. remembering that £1 spent on the island is worth nearly £2 in the economy. These things are really important. So there's a lot to do. If we can become net zero before 2050, fine, but let's not set ourselves unrealistic targets.
Thank you. Well, that wraps up our questions for the evening. All that remains is for each candidate to have their final word on why you should vote for them. So, Tim Baker, can I invite you to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is essential that the people of the Isle of Man make the right choices on the 23rd of September. There is a huge amount to be done over the next 5 years, and it's important that we make the right choices and go down the right paths which will achieve the best long-term future for our island. I have a proven track record of getting things done. I have the experience, characteristics and established relationships to get on with the job from day one. I want to continue to make a difference by representing the people of Ayre and Michael in the House of Keys. I know the role and I'm confident that I can continue to address the things that matter and to get results. I will continue to put the island first and will not let down the people of Ayre and Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. Alfred Cannon.
The island is facing a series of complex challenges over the next 5 years, from climate change to healthcare transition to improving our education system to managing the COVID situation and a post-COVID recovery. Dealing with these situations will require politicians with acumen, experience and the ability to make a difference. Over the last 5 years, I believe I've proven my ability to deal with the difficulties of COVID, deliver the right support schemes to maintain success for our economy and success for our family incomes. We've got the lowest rates of unemployment for almost 20 years. We do need to focus now to help the island transition through the COVID period. We do need to focus about our delivery of climate change, but we also need to make sure that our core services, our health, our education, are now delivering value for money and that we are getting proper results from our service delivery. I ask you to consider my track record, to consider my manifesto in which you will see I'll outline a series of improvements that can be made for government and for a secure and sustainable future for you and your families. I ask you to vote Cannon at the Ayre for the general election in September.
Thank you very much. Tim Johnston.
I ran a dairy farm in Andreas for 20 years and have lived in Selby for the last 3 years and continue to run an arable enterprise nearby St Jude's. I've been involved with the Manx National Farmers Union for 20 years, taking on many roles, including my present role of president since 2019. Whilst a dairy farmer, I also served on the board of the Isle of Man Creamery as a director for 3.5 years. The experience I've gained in running my own business, as well as being a board member at the Creamery, along with the political lobbying, negotiation and chairing skills through my work at the MNFU, can be put to wider use if I have the privilege of being elected in September. If elected, this will be my sole employment. Please make your vote count. It is easy to say the next 5 years are critical, but our island really has some big challenges to face. I hope my background and experience and my straightforward and honest approach will inspire you to support me on polling day. Thank you.
Thank you. Duncan Livingston.
Thank you for listening to us all this evening. I hope you've gained some insight which helps you to make a decision. I would be privileged if you feel that I am worthy of receiving your vote. What I would say is, please, whoever you feel is the strongest candidate, make sure you vote for them. We need a good turnout at this election. It's an important election for the island and for us moving forward. We've talked about some very important issues here tonight. I think there's a certain feeling amongst people I've spoken to, though, that government has lost sight of some of the small things. The footpaths being maintained, grass being cut, things that annoy normal people and they just feel that government is letting them down. So thank you, and if you feel like voting for me, I would be very grateful.
Thank you very much. And finally, Paul Wetherall.
Thank you. When you get to see my manifesto, please take the opportunity to read it thoroughly. And I hope that you will find enough in it to be able to support and vote for me. I think that together we really can make a difference in Ayre and Michael. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Paul. I'd like to thank all of you for attending tonight, giving us your views. Now it's over to you. Where will your vote be going on September the 23rd? Thank you and goodbye.